Thank you so much for joining us today for the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. Here on the Pastor's Potluck, it's similar to a normal potluck where you might get something that you want and there may be something that you just want to pass up altogether. And that's okay. There's something here for everybody. Our goal here is to encourage you and maybe in the process entertain you. If you're ready, let's dig in. Well, on this episode of the Pastor's Potluck Podcast, I thought I'd try to start it like the way that you do your Extra Point podcasts.
Be yourself.
I know. That's what I'm doing is being myself.
Yep.
So,
Love it.
So how's your day going?
Good.
You're getting caffeinated.
I am trying to, yes.
That thing looks like it's got like a good mound of chocolate in the bottom.
It's supposed to be the chocolate iced coffee, but I think all the chocolate's in the bottom.
Yeah. Is it sweet? Like really, really sweet?
No, not really sweet. No.
Okay.
It's just.
So she has like the iced coffee from Krispy Kreme donuts. For those of y'all that are listening, and it looks like there's like a good amount of chocolate that is just like sat at the bottom, and we're trying to shake it. Yeah, trying to shake it to get it well mixed and get her sugared and caffeined up for the conversation. We are continuing our series of a day in the life, a week in the life of us here on staff, and Pastor Cheryl is here, and we are going to talk about what a typical week looks like for our next steps in discipleship pastor. Mm-hmm. I think one of the great things that, and we've mentioned it is several times, is that, recently you've transitioned into this role. And so it's almost been kind of like a complete reworking of because was it for 6, 7, 10, 14 years of your ministry, it seems like was in, kids dealing with kids for that long. It could seem like a lot longer. But there's just so much that you have to learn and so much that you have to try to process, especially with like volunteers as well, just because there's background checks and now that you're in this new role, it's like a complete reworking of like your day to day and your week to week and your month to month duties. What is something that you actually look forward to before we get into like the stuff like the day to day or whatever? What is something that you look forward to? Like maybe, I don't know, events or like there's something, and it could be just generic, but it just happens often enough. It doesn't have to be something specific, like an event or whatever, or like the start of groups. But like, there's got to be something that you're like, man, this just gets the engine pumping. Like it just gets me going. Like, what is that?
Yeah. I think it's any time that I get to sit down with someone and just help them along with whatever God is doing in their lives, whether that is I'm sitting down with our groups coordinator and helping her process through like some ideas and dreams that God has given her and figure out how to implement them, or our security team leader, like sitting down with him and just getting to encourage him and hear like how God is moving in his life, or whether it's somebody completely brand new who's wanting to get involved to maybe lead a group, start a group, or getting to serve for the first time, or someone who wants to get baptized. Like those moments are just so special. Like
it is,
no matter what it is, it can seem a lot of people don't like those moments where they get to sit down and maybe just hear about somebody's life or that kind of thing. But I love it. I live for it. And so
it's like whenever somebody in your ministry comes up and like you're not talking shop. Okay, so like obviously I'm the worship pastor, and we're not talking music. We're not talking media. We're not talking live stream. We're not talking audio. We're not talking musical equipment. We're not talking anything. It's just them telling me like what God is doing in their life, and like, or maybe how God has provided in a certain situation. that's what it's all about for me.
Yeah.
Like,
because there are those things you cover, but if you're not connecting with the individual and like hearing from them, like to see really like, okay, yes, you're part of my team and I help you and we have our things we got to get done. But like, what's going on in your life? Like, what have you been learning? What has God been speaking to you on? Like what, whatever, how can I be there for you? That's what really matters. Like that's what's behind everything that we do here is, we want people in a group. We want people to serve. We want people to do those things. But the real root of all of it is to help them grow in their relationship with Christ. Yeah. And if they're not doing that or getting that, then we're doing something wrong. And so it's those moments. And like lately I've been helping people come up with some stuff that they're going to share on Easter. And those meetings, like there were a couple of weeks where I was just absolutely drained because I had so many meetings with different people hearing those stories, but it was also really energizing in the same way because I got to hear from over 20 people just, something that God has done for them. Yeah,
it's so good. I just love hearing it. I mean, it's just seeing God work in people's lives and just the fruit of like literally the 365 days a year as we are constantly encouraging people to get plugged into our small groups, to volunteer and to do those things. And we know that through the community that is found in these different ministries and our small groups, that's where the life change begins to happen because then you have people that can hold you accountable as you begin to open up and share maybe things that you're going through or like some difficult times or things that you're struggling with. And then knowing that there's like a small army of people that are praying for you. Yeah. It kind of gives you that pep in the step to be able to take the next steps, to see these situations begin to get resolved or, like relationships mended or things that are being released, finally after years of heartache or something that they've been carrying. Yeah. And like, if you look at the model of Jesus, what he did with with his disciples, it was through that community that brought about life change. Obviously Jesus, the greatest teacher of all time, teaching us how we should live and love and pursue the things of God. But it's just that example that we have that we can learn from and see because through those 12 disciples, people say 11 or whatever because Judas, whatever. But through his disciples, we now have and we still have this legacy of knowing who Jesus is and them just not taking no for an answer pretty much, with sharing the gospel and saying, what, Jesus did this for us. Let's do that for other people as well. So it's so good. So, seeing the life change in people's lives, that's always going to be something amazing. And your kids are staring.
Sorry. Yeah. So my day is great, but I do have my 2 older children with me. Today, you guys can come say hi real quick.
Come say hi.
Come here. Say, can you, in the microphone, say, hi, my name is Esme.
Hi, my name is Esme.
Oh. Tell them how old you are.
4.
All right. Carter, your turn. Say your name into the mic.
Carter.
No, say it normal.
I'm Carter.
His name is Carter. How old are you?
6.
Carter is 6.
Okay.
Welcome. You just did your...
Yes. Welcome. They're out there on the table. Go get them and go back to my office. Esme, go.
Ministry is so fun. It's so fun because it's like so unpredictable. And this is like one of those unpredictability moments.
Well,
we'll be right back.
Yep.
All right, we're back. We got the kids' donuts.
Yeah, that's why I had the Krispy Kreme coffee, is because I thought donuts would keep them occupied for this, but I didn't give them enough.
I would be occupied with like a dozen donuts for sure. Yeah. I'd probably be sick as well, but a dozen donuts.
Yeah.
So typical week in the typical day, we just ministry is so unpredictable. And then, if kids get sick and then, Anthony's at work and he's got important things going on today, actually, that I'm praying for him today at lunch. So he's got a big thing going on. But it's just one of those things. And I'm actually grateful that we have like the culture here is like if something were to happen, like, we can take our kids and they can come to work and hang out with us. And
because I think Pastor Scott's done a really good job of reminding us that, our family is our first and most important ministry. And a lot of people in ministry get that really confused or could be completely opposite in that way. And then the family suffers in the process. But like we have a big day this weekend. And so with that, I'm not going to be around them much that Saturday. They're almost old enough to bring with me to that, but they're not quite there yet. So I let them come today to help me with some of the pre-setup stuff.
Yeah.
But so, there is a lot of that in ministry too that, for me, for my weeks, because my husband does work. Like I know, Scott and Megan have seen a little bit of a difference with her working now, but but when both of you work at times, then there's just times you got to adapt and shift and figure it out. But today's one of those days.
Yeah, for sure. So next steps in discipleship. Typical work week for you is a little bit different than most because you're thinking not in like a week long term.
Right.
So, like some of us, like myself, like we're well planned ahead in the worship ministry, but we literally function in a week to week basis because of we do services on Sunday,
right?
And but we all know, I think, from the past conversations that we've had with other people that we talked in the Week of Life, Mondays are just crazy.
Yeah.
Mondays are it's meetings and meetings, making sure that we're all on the same page as a staff. We're all on the same page as individuals if we have something else going on.
Right.
But typically, what are some things that you are like focusing on, and how far out are you looking at things? Because your next steps in discipleship, it's not just like, there are week to week things like with our small groups, but there's also like a lot of planning that go on.
Yeah. So under the next steps in discipleship pastor role, I have a lot of different areas that I kind of oversee. And so if you were to go into our room that we have here called the Next Steps room, basically anything within that room I oversee. So that is groups. That's all the serving team stuff. That's all the mission stuff. That's all the like stuff under faith. So if someone is wanting to get baptized or do a baby dedication or whatever, I'm kind of that initial contact to help get that planned and prepped and ready to go. And then like as far as just connecting and resourcing families with things, that's also kind of under there. But
that's good.
But so, and then if you were to go to src.life online, like all that discover purpose, discover faith, discover community, I oversee those things. And so within that, we've said it several times, groups is a big thing. And we know we're going to launch those a couple different times a year.
Yeah.
And we know pretty well, like in the flow of the year, when we're going to do that.
Yeah.
But we have to be, like I actually have a meeting with our groups coordinator, this week that will be going to begin planning the fall launch.
Yeah.
And so like, and see like what other things like we want to do or improve upon or that kind of stuff. And so like with that, I already know for mission stuff, basically like what's going to happen throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Like we have some new things that we'll be introducing soon. And then, and that'll kind of happen a little bit over the summer. And then there's our impact schools that we do in the fall. Like we already know like those things and are planning out that stuff as a whole. So anything like big event that we do for mission stuff, we basically, try to already line those things out well in advance, like a year in advance. Some things we just know it's going to happen at around this time, this date every year.
Yeah.
And we're going to make it happen. But within that, because if we want to capture any kind of testimony videos from people to share about groups, like that stuff needs to happen like a lot earlier, just because schedules are hard and difficult to nail people down.
Yep.
And if you wait until closer to time, even if you're 2 months out, it may not be enough time to really do that. And so, so with any given thing, I mean, it's probably at least 6 months out that I am planning or looking at those things.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of maybe one of the bigger things that I'm doing and planning ahead on. There's also some things that I do and work on that are like future minded things that we haven't quite implemented yet, or maybe aren't, that I work on too. And there's not so much of a set date. Like I have a time frame of when I want to get it done and begin to implement it, but it's really something more for future minded or future growth. And
yeah, that's so good. Now, do you oversee like some of the major, like, because I know the church, we do like major events, egg hunts, you know, we do trunk or treat. Are you overseeing those as well, as seeing as it's like,
in a way,
missions minded a little bit?
In a way, because they are outreach events.
Yeah.
So I am involved in that. Like our missions team, like we may meet and say like, hey, we want to try to help do this or make this better. We might like do some feedback, but really some of those things like egg hunts, trunk or treat, kids and like younger families with younger kids, really falls more under Jessica, Pastor Jess, our kids pastor, because she's the one like really with the vision behind it, and it's for kids who may come in and families that may come into her ministry in the future. But even within that, I know Pastor Scott shared this in his Week in the Life, like Pastor Jess is Scott's sister, so she reports to me like directly. And so in our one-on-one meetings that we have, like we talk about those things, or if she has a question about it, she comes to me with it. And especially because I was the person who helped do those events for 8 years. So she may ask me like, hey, what did you all do in the past with this, or that kind of thing.
You're a wealth of knowledge. Like it's like if I was going into kids ministry and like the former kids pastor was still on staff, like I would tap into that and just be like, hey, just give it to me.
Like there are some things that we know, like that we've done and we understand like this works and this doesn't work. Like there's no point in trying to do the thing that we've realized like doesn't work. Because, or, you know, when we know schools want flyers during a specific time frame before an event, not too soon and not too late, and how they want them done for us to deliver those flyers, like all those things, you know, we figured that out. And so there's no point in you trying to figure that out. And so yes, in a way I kind of oversee those, but I'm not like really the main person doing all the details and all the things like that. And really with most of the areas I oversee, I'm not the main person doing all those things. Like there's somebody that's oversees like our security. There's someone else that oversees groups. There's missions is kind of interesting because it's kind of a group of individuals. There are people within that team that we meet that they're maybe more passionate about a specific type of missions and outreach that we do, but we all help, you know, push forward.
Oh, that's good.
The things of the whole church that's doing it, whether that's, you know, Beauty Day, and these ladies over here are really excited about that. They're still going to help push forward Impact Schools just as much. And so, so missions is a little interesting in that way. But like our prayer team, I have someone that really, she does the majority of the work behind that, like the organizational stuff, sending the emails with prayer requests, updating all those things, getting updates for those prayer needs, like that type of stuff. It's someone who, because of health reasons, still isn't able to be here physically as much. And so it's a way, she's passionate about prayer. And so it's a way for her to still be involved and connected and give back within something that she's passionate about and good at. And so, you know, I oversee her. I do handle some of the prayer stuff that happens within the church, But that's, that's simple because I'm already here during those times. But yeah, so there's, it's not always me doing a lot of that like main detail work. Some of the things like that has to be done in-house or like communicated, whether it's for an image for one of those events, those kind of things.
I was about to say you're like the next steps pastor for the pastors as well, because in the sense of, because like you are going through and making sure every single detail for every single Sunday, every single sermon series, every single event, like everything is spelled out and clearly defined, to where whenever we wrap up like one of these like sermon series or events and we're kind of like talking about like the pros and the cons, we're not missing anything. And we're not sitting there going, oh man, I wish I would have known this. No, we're taking the time to actually think about every single specific detail, almost down to like whenever we do trunk or treat, like we're telling people like where your car's going to be and like, hey, you need to be here. You need to show up with this amount of candy. That type of thing, just so everything we do is done with excellence. Right. Because whenever we do things with excellence and it's in the preparation, like that's whenever we see Jesus shine the brightest.
Yeah.
Because if people show up to an event or something, and let's just face it, like we've all shown up to one of those types of events, and it's just chaos, and we're just like, you're questioning like, what is going on? I'm not saying like that specifically happened here. It may have, I don't know, before I got here.
Probably my first event. Just kidding.
but whenever we do things with excellence and we show up, and then everybody knows the expectation for the assigned task and what they need to be doing, it's in that preparation and planning that we've spent a lot of time in prayer on how to make these things the absolute best, and giving people the resources and the information they know well ahead of time, and setting the expectations. So whenever it is executed, Jesus comes through and people are pointed back to Jesus.
Yeah. And a lot of people, like, they don't like that preparation aspect or things like that because either one, they're not very high detail oriented. Like, I am actually not a high details person, in the sense that, like, I might say this needs done, but how you exactly do it, I don't necessarily care so much. And people, and it's just the difference between the way that I'm wired and lead in certain ways. Like whenever I did lead kids ministry in our elementary class, if I had other people who taught, like I'd have them observe how I taught, but then they would also have the lesson that was kind of scripted out and how to do it. So they could kind of see and know, okay, this is what was laid out, but this is how Pastor Cheryl chose to implement it. Yeah. And the thing I always told them, stick with the story, stick with the bottom line, the main points. But how exactly you teach that, whether that is you want to read scripture throughout it, whether that's you want to story tell with like getting kids to come up and help act it out, or use props or that kind of thing, is like not necessarily what matters as much, as long as that message is delivered. And so I'm not actually super high detail oriented, but for others they are, and we need to make sure that we're doing things to be able to do everyone. And also it comes into that play of, if you don't give that information and they do something wrong, you can't get mad at them because you didn't give them that information. Yeah. But a lot of people also will feel like, oh, well, you're just not giving time or space for God to move, but they forget that God is actually in the details too. Yeah. Like if you go back and you look through scripture, like when they first created the tabernacle, like in Moses's time, where, and the Ark of the Covenant and all that, like where they would come and all that stuff was set up. I mean, there are so many details within that he was like, do it like this, use this type of collar thread. Like, I mean, just everything. Like God is in the details too. But when we work out those details, it does allow for more freedom. Yeah. Like, because, okay, this is what's expected. This is what, the idea behind it and the why behind it and all of that. But knowing that, like, okay, I have all this in place. So I'm I'm not so worried about what I need to do when or where I need to be or all of those things. Instead, I'm where I need to be at the time I'm supposed to be, doing what I'm supposed to do. And within that, I can now focus on the people who are there.
Yeah.
Or I can now focus on the message I'm supposed to deliver.
Yeah.
Like, because all of that's already been taken place and you're not having all that other junk run through your head during those moments.
Yeah. It just stems from good leadership. Like that's, I mean, it's influencing people to do these things in a way that whenever it is done with excellence, they can make those connection points with people whenever they come up for our services or for our events. And that's what it's always pointing people to community with like-minded believers and growing in our faith. And whenever there's the instance of someone who doesn't believe in Jesus, then it gives us that opportunity to be able to have those conversations that ultimately point people to Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so good. It's so good. Now, so I know that we've got like some pretty, while we're still on the topic of events, I know we've got some pretty big events coming up, and it's around Easter time, and I kind of want to plug it a little bit.
Yeah.
Just because they're huge events, and we really haven't been able to do any events for like 2 years because of the pandemic and everything else going on. We had a really crazy good turnout for our trunk or treat back in the fall.
Yeah.
We have another opportunity to where there's going to be a ton of people that make their way through our property, and I want to talk about that for a little bit because it's a great opportunity to point people to Jesus.
So in the shift of COVID and things, we did egg hunt type stuff, very different last year, just to help keep that large crowd aspect because people were still nervous. But I mean, this year, masks are off in schools, all that. And so people are a lot more comfortable being out in crowds as well. And so we have our friends and family egg hunt on April 6th in the evening. And that is for like our Southridge people, our families who are here. You can invite a friend or a family member. Maybe it's a friend who you've wanted to invite them to church, or maybe you have been inviting them, but they haven't came because let's face it, like coming to a church, especially if you've not been in church in a long time or you've been hurt by a church.
Oh yeah.
It can be very intimidating and a little scary, like especially because we just have because of our experience and what we've seen or that kind of thing, our perspective can be very different from what actually happens here in our church. And so it's a very unintimidating invite to say, hey, come up with your kids and hunt some eggs with us, get some free food with us. And then they have a chance to maybe even meet some of the other families and see the place. And they're like, you know what, maybe I will come out and come to church here. Like maybe I'll come try it out. It's just that low key invite. And also because that Saturday, the 9th, is our community extravaganza. Yeah. And that is the big scale event. Within that, people get lost. Not maybe lost physically, maybe, but we haven't had that. We've always had a plan in place in case a kid did get lost and come to us and whatever.
A search and rescue.
But we haven't had that issue really.
Yeah.
Yet. And so hopefully,
the good Lord.
Praise the Lord, pray we don't ever have that situation. But but that event is pretty big scale. We send invites to the local schools to invite those kids. Yeah. And we could have anywhere from 600 to 1,000 or more people up here. Yeah. And that many people up here, you can't really make as many of those close connections or introduce them to other people. But so
it does allow for people to come up and see that we're just like real people
and that we're here.
Yeah.
Because often because where we're located, like a lot of people just don't realize we're up here.
Yeah. They think we're another church actually.
Yeah. But it just allows families to come and see that we're here, but really like to just come and have a good time around Easter in a safe place. Where they're not going to have to worry about just, I don't know, craziness. But we started doing the friends and family one actually a few years of before COVID, because we asked our families, you know, our people here to volunteer for this community one, but often, you know, they're there with their young kids and trying to serve as well.
Yeah.
And it made it very difficult where they're like, well, I want to serve, but I also want to be able to like watch my kid hunt eggs.
Yeah.
And so we created this smaller scale one for our people, kind of to honor them and serve them in such a way that then, and their families in such a way that then they're like, okay, I've done this. Now I can go and serve my community and not have to have that tension of pulling away from my family and trying to serve the community and wanting to do those things. And so, and that was something that was actually brought by a leadership team that I had in place, like where they just made the suggestion. We were like, that's actually a great idea.
Yeah, I'd never heard of it before.
So,
I was kind of taken back because I was like, why would we do 2 egg hunts? You know, but then it like just hearing the explanation of it prior to us recording this podcast or whatever. This was quite a while ago that we had this conversation, but just understanding it, I mean, it really does say, hey, we value you enough. And we want to first off say thank you for volunteering for our community egg hunt as a way of us doing that. We want you to just come up here with your kids and just have a blast, and we will serve you. And it's not like a scratch your back, you scratch mine type mentality.
Right. No.
It's just a way that like, that's just what we do. Like we just want to honor our volunteers and say, first off, thank you so much for everything you do throughout the year. We want you to come up without no strings attached. You come up here with your kids and you just have the time of your life. Yeah. Which is great. I think it's just so great. And it just, I don't know. There's a lot of times where a church as a whole just misses the opportunity to say thank you for the people that week in and week out just give so much to see the success of the church. And this is just a small way, one small moment to where we can say thank you so much. And we value you. We value your time with you spending the time with your kids. Why don't you come on up and hunt some eggs? I think there's only one caveat. Do you mind sticking around and help clean up after this event? Because let's face it, like we do really well by that at church. If there's an event going on and people are here, you're like, hey, why don't you come here real quick?
Thankfully, there's usually quite a few people who are. Oh, I know. They're just those people. They're like, I'm gonna stick around here and clean up, and we're like, no, like. I remember I did an event like, and it was like, I called it, I don't know, refuel or something like that for my volunteers. And I literally I made tacos for a taco bar. Like I did everything. I didn't want them to do anything, touch anything, like whatever. I just literally wanted a night for them to come and kind of get refreshed and refilled and like have some fun and thank them. And afterwards, I mean, I literally had to push people out the door. Like they did not want to leave without helping. And I'm like, no, this is not for you to clean up. Like I've got this. I love you, but I don't want your help because this was not a night for you to come and have to do anything. Yeah. But we have a lot of wonderful people who are just so servant minded. And I think that that's because it comes from the leadership, you know, I know many times throughout my time here where Pastor Scott has been like, hey, what can I do to help you do this? Or, hey, we want to see this done, but what do you need from me to help you do this? And and a lot of places workplaces, period. And even in churches, it's not always like that. No,
one of the great things about this church is that they understand many hands make light work. And so the more people that get involved with making things happen, the easier it is on everybody. And then you don't deal with volunteer burnout. You don't deal with pastor burnout as fast as it can happen. Yeah. It's because we're not sitting up here week in and week out, staying here to the wee hours of the morning, trying to set up, tear down, prepare for this, do that. It's just that people understand that you and I can't do everything by ourselves and that we rely on those people, but also like more people make things happen, which is just fantastic.
And so speaking of burnout, like one of the other things, and like just caring for needs in general, like I think that was one of the big things that Pastor Scott like sees within me, and I do, like, I care for people. I really am concerned about needs at times and things like that. And so that's another thing that I oversee is pastoral care. Because I also think a lot of people don't understand fully, like, that's why I think these podcasts about the week in the life or a day in the life is really cool, because most people don't understand fully the, like, how much actually has to happen for a Sunday to happen, like on the front end. A lot of people like maybe just think we show up and things are there magically. I don't know.
It's like there's 168 hours in the week. We are literally preparing 166 hours because we have two roughly 1 hour services. So what are we doing the other 166 hours? And my mind is constantly constantly, because I've got this new thing, like how can what can I do to make things better? But what am I doing that's pushing this thing forward? And so, like, just, man, mental health is like a huge thing.
It is a big one.
And I'm still human. Like, I still have bad days. I still go through heartache and sorrow and joy. Like, my highs are really high, but my lows are like really low. And that's, it's just important just to take care of myself.
And so, like, we all have, everyone on staff here, we all have things that we have to get done every single week, and there are a lot of people here also, but we need to take care of ourselves and our families, as well as being able to be there for our people when things happen, being able to pray for those needs and come alongside of people as they need it, whether that's through like sending some meals, setting up to have some meals delivered to people, or just sending cards after a surgery or when a new baby comes, or like if somebody needs encouragement, like sending those things out, or visiting in the hospital now that that's opened back up, mostly for a lot of places. And so there's a lot of those things that need done every week, and sometimes we don't know about a lot of those things because people just don't tell us, or they put it on Facebook and they think we should see it, but Facebook algorithms and all what they are, you don't always see those things. But that's one thing that's been super helpful with the prayer team as it is, and also like that app that we've been using, Echo Prayer, for that we've been able to use it as a way on the pastoral side in a pastor's group, like to figure out like, hey, let's check back in with this person, or check back in with these people, see if they have a need still that's ongoing, because you have those things that come up within people's lives that maybe it's just like a brief when I'm done, like, hey, pray for this meeting that I have this weekend, or pray for this interview. But then there are things that are ongoing for months, and it's not that we forget about it, but it's that there is so much other going on that we want to make sure that it's not missed, that it's not forgotten. And I think that's where a lot of times in our lives, like, we have felt forgotten at times, or felt like, wow, they just don't even care about me. But it's not that, it's that like there's a lot going on. And so, like, we've tried to set up some things to help make sure that people don't end up feeling that way, and including ourselves, like that we aren't forgetting about our families or our own personal mental health needs, or that kind of thing, that we are taking care of the needs and caring for one another in the way that the church was supposed to be in the very beginning. When the early church came about, like, they were meeting the needs of their people, like, amazingly.
Oh, I know. People were, I mean, people were bringing them food, and just like, if somebody got sick or whatever, they would go and like tend to their fields or their animals and all this other stuff, and just stepping up to the plate, and just meeting the immediate needs that people have, because whenever something like tragic or catastrophic happens in somebody's life, you just don't think like, oh, like, I've got to, make sure, like this is happening or this is taken care of, like because your mind is solely focused on what has happened.
Yeah.
And just stepping up to the plate, and even just saying, "Hey, have you taken care of this?" Like, like that's a huge
because
thing
sometimes
for
it's
somebody.
like, oh yeah, I need to be
because we can't pay.
reminded of that. Yeah.
I mean, like I would love to be able to pay people's bills if they're out of work,
right?
But it's just not realistic at this juncture. But I would love to be able to do that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
but there's
hey,
things
we understand
like,
life is like really terrible right now, and we understand that you can't work.
Yeah.
Like, here's some money to take care of your bills.
But like we have some widows within the church that, like their spouse died years ago, but they're still like, one I know just put up recently about needing someone to come help cut her grass. Like, you know what I mean? And those are things that many of us can probably go do that. Like, but it's just that ongoing, like we think, okay, well, we were there for the funeral in the first few months, but we forget that there's actually things that they deal with all the time.
Yeah.
That like just that checking back in with them, seeing if they need anything, seeing what they, it's those things that we just got to make sure that we stay up on.
Yeah.
And if like we're all trying to do that, then it can get a little like difficult, or we just don't know, like, hey, you've been checking in on this person but we think that it's not been done. Like, and so having something in place where we can now communicate as pastors to make sure that those things are getting done has really been helpful. And we also, I think what's great here is that it's not just Pastor Scott, like as the lead pastor, having to go and be kind of on call for pastoral care, whether that's hospital visits or whatever, all month long, like 24/7. It's not him. Like we each have about 6 days of the month that we rotate through now, to where like we know, hey, I have these days, like the 1st through the 6th, I have those days, or whichever. I think that's Scott's days, but anyway, like knowing who's on what for what days, to say, okay, hey, can you go and visit this person in the hospital? Because a lot of other churches or smaller churches, it's just all up to the guy, the head pastor, and that's difficult because he does have a life, he does have things going on too. And it can be really hard. And that's where I think groups are so important.
I was just about to say, it's like, it seems like everything that we're talking about today is pointing back to some of our core values. Like, we are better together, and we before me. It's just, we're putting the needs of others in front of us, and we truly are better together. Like, if you can get a close-knit group of friends, 10 to 12 people, whoever shows up at your group, then if something does go wrong, then you have those immediate 10 people, 12 people that that they're going to be praying diligently for you. Yep. And just because of the culture here at the church, that those people are going to step up. Now, it's not like I'm holding you accountable for that. It's just the nature of the game. And it's not like I'm looking for something bad to happen in my life so I could be the recipient of something. It's just that, like, it's just like a genuine friendship. Yes. It's just like,
you get to build those relationships. Yeah. And then it's like it's almost like family. Like I believe
that's what I was
Anthony
about to say. It's just like your stinking family. Like, if something happens, that your brother, your mom, your dad, or whatever, they're going to show up. And just because it's their family. Yeah. But my family, my immediate family, can't do this because I live 2,200 miles away from my family. Yep. And so, like, I need that core group of people that if something were to happen to me and I'm in the hospital, then I know that somebody can step up and help out Erica in any which way that she needs help and help get something done, whatever that may be. Right. And I know that I can rely on my small group to do that. I wouldn't have been able to know that if I didn't join a small group. Right. Because we're going through life together. We're sharing our struggles. We're sharing the growth that is happening in our lives. And that's just Jesus in us. And so we celebrate those things. We're excited that Jesus is drawing you closer to you. But because of those conversations that we are having, it's like, I know Cheryl because you're in my small group. Okay, so I can say this. I know you on a more detailed level than most people would know, because I know what God is walking through you with. I know how Jesus is walking with you through these things. Yeah. And that just gets me excited.
Yeah.
And so, like, whenever something is not all right in your life, then
Yeah.
I want to be able to do whatever I can to help the Ross family out, to alleviate any kind of other outside stress that you don't need to be focusing
Yeah.
on, because you need to be focusing on whatever else you need to be
Right.
focusing on.
Yes. And also, sorry, little one's trying to interrupt again. But also within that, I think that also goes with the discipleship umbrella as well, because as people are learning and growing and developing within groups, like they're learning how to be Jesus a little bit more,
Yeah.
how to be those things, because Jesus, like, he didn't just do everything while he was here. Like, they forget, like, there's that story where he sent out the disciples 2 by 2
Yeah.
and to go and do those things also. And so he
Yeah.
was training them up and teaching them, you know, how they should go and also do these things. And that's
Yeah.
what we as pastors really should be doing and Christians really, is we should be doing the things that Jesus wants us to do.
Mm-hmm.
But then we should also be like, we should have a relationship with other people who we are trying to raise them up in that same way, that like
Yeah.
we are all trying to do and be a little bit more like Jesus, and we want others to do that as well.
Yeah. Goodness, it's so good. Like, I love that, how, like, I mean, I feel like I could talk till I'm blue in the face, or people would perceive that, but goodness, I wish that people would understand, like, the importance of, like, why we ask people to join a small group. I mean, it's not just because we want to be in control and tell you what to do. It's because we understand that, like, we understand the positive impact that comes because of it.
The benefit and
the benefit.
like,
I mean, like, look, if nothing else happens in life, but you are drawn closer to Jesus in your relationship with him because of small group, then
yeah.
oh my gosh, your life is like 1,000 times better.
Oh yeah.
And it just goes back to like what Scott said. He's like, you know, I'm not trying to work just to get saved just for fire insurance. Like, because I put my faith and my trust in God, I should see something in my life. Like, there should be tangible evidence that there is change, that Jesus is working on me,
Right.
and I'm being drawn closer to him. And one of the best ways to do that is to grow with a group of people in your knowledge and your understanding of who Jesus really is. So
Yeah.
go to src.life and /groups and sign up for groups today.
Yes. And it doesn't matter if we're already in the middle of it. Like, you can join
It's not
at
too
any
late.
time. No, it's not. It is never too late. Like, you know, I know that some places do like close down their enrollment or the ability to like go in and join a group. And you may feel like it's awkward to come into the middle of one. But like, I will tell you, in our group, my husband starts out the group the same way every single time, regardless of whether there's anybody new there or not. Just because we really do like value the importance and understanding of like what groups are supposed to be. And so we just try to make it the same every week, just to really reinforce those things, to really make sure that it's a safe place, and that we, you know, that we care and those kind of things. But yeah, it's never too late to do that, because I mean, if you look at it in that way and you put it off, then maybe you'll put it off again when the time really does come, but you're just missing out. Like, and that's really at the heart of a lot of the things we do. Like, we want you to do them because we know what you're missing out on if you don't. Like, and so that is just really it. Like, I know that there was a level of growth and things that happened within me when I began serving that would never have happened otherwise. Like, I began serving in kids ministry here before I was ever on staff. And I'm telling you, the level at which, like, and maybe not everybody does this, but I had kids asking me questions that maybe I didn't know. And I wanted to be able to answer those things. So I'd say, you know what? I'm going to look it up and I'll find out and I'll talk to you next week. And I would come back the next week and I would answer their questions. So there was just this level of growth that was happening within me that would not have happened had I not done that. And the same thing goes for groups as well. Okay, you know where it is. Go down.
It is time for mystery meat. This is the segue we've been waiting
Sounds
for.
Great.
Yeah. No, but like seriously, join a small group. My goodness. It's so beneficial. It
Yeah.
really is. It really is. It
Yeah,
really is.
Groups are, serving is too. Like, I mean, just get involved.
Yeah.
Don't just sit around and come week after week without doing anything. And whether you think maybe you're not doing it because you don't have time on Sunday,
Yeah.
there are other ways to get involved
too.
that have nothing to do with Sunday, because there is ministry that happens all throughout the week,
Yeah.
not just on Sundays. I mean, we send cards to people. We do all kinds of different things. And I'm telling you, if you use that as an excuse, you're never going to see the fullness of what God can do in and through you
Yep.
until you get involved.
That's so good. And who knows? Maybe somebody will hand out free gold at groups. I'm just joking.
Maybe like those gold coins that are like actually chocolate.
Yeah, the chocolate coins.
Maybe you'll get that.
That's like the worst candy in the history of the earth.
It really is not even that great. But
No.
yeah, so if you want to get involved in some way, I'm your person to come to.
And look, or maybe if you want to just start your own special interest group, that's what's great too. It's like just hanging out and talking about like your favorite hobby. Like that's a great way.
Doing your favorite hobby. Like whatever.
Yeah. Well, just whatever.
Whatever.
Exactly. All right. Mystery meat time. What's your favorite car that you have owned?
I haven't owned very many cars.
You like those Nikes? Mine back in '95. No. What's your favorite car
That I've owned.
Yeah.
It was probably my first car, just because it was my first car. But it was just a simple little 4-cylinder Mustang, but it was white.
What? You had a
Two-door.
Mustang?
Yeah. I mean, it was a 4-cylinder. It wasn't like a fancy, like good massive engine or anything like that. But it was white, 2-door, and it was my first car.
What year was it? Do you know?
It was a 98 maybe.
Okay.
Or something.
All right. I'm trying to picture it. Okay, I know what it is.
Yeah. So
it was like right before they started doing like the new rounded versions. It had like a little bit of a boxy edge to it.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was that, and like what's funny is that like my stepmom had broken the driver's seat, and I'm already short, okay, so I already have to sit but she like broke it a little bit, so it leaned back and so I had this big fluffy pillow that I would have to put in there to be able to drive, to keep me upright where I wasn't leaning back where I could see. And then, man, along the way, the passenger side door, like, it just stopped. You couldn't open it.
Oh, gosh.
And I don't know why. And I don't, like, I still never, I mean, I sold it before I ever got that fixed. But that broke. And so it's a 2-door car, right?
Yeah.
And so it's either you have to climb in through the driver's side seat or Dukes of Hazzard it in through the window.
Yeah, through the window.
And I'll never forget. I mean, it's my first year of college, and I'm taking like the university intro course that you have to do. And we had to go to some like medieval times thing that was happening at a library. We all had to go, and the teacher's like, you have to pick up, so-and-so, this boy that was in the class. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like, I tell him, I'm messaging with him, and I'm like, do you like Dukes of Hazzard? He's like, which one? And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Do you like it? And he's like, I guess. And I'm like, okay, because you're gonna have to Dukes of Hazzard it and climb in through the window on the passenger side seat or door.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay. Well, I get there, his friends are around, and I pull up and I roll down the window, and he's like, are you serious? And I said, yeah, completely serious, unless you want to crawl in through my side. And he's like, nope. And so he hops on in, and I'm like,
that's so funny.
But yeah, so there were just funny memories with that car.
Yeah. My first car was probably my favorite, because that's where I learned to drive manual transmission. But it was a 1990 Volvo. And so, but this thing was like, it was a box.
Yeah.
It was like straight in the front, straight hood, straight windshield, straight roof, straight back windows, straight trunk, and then down. But it was jet black paint.
Oh.
I had the darkest tint that you could put on a vehicle. And I'm not talking about the darkest tint to get away with it still being legal. I'm talking about the darkest tint. You couldn't see inside this thing. And so it looked like a mafia car. And so, yeah, it was jet black interior, everything in it. So, like, obviously in the summertime and in Texas, like every time you got in there,
man.
you were cooked to a good medium rare. And it was hot. But I love that car, just because I loved it. I loved it. I hated it in the summertime because it was extremely hot. But once it got going, like the AC.
Was it leather seats or cloth?
No, it was cloth seats. Okay. So that made it
That's
a little bit more
better.
But like the steering wheel and it was really weird. Like the interior, like it had cloth seats, but like the steering wheel and like the dashboard was leather. Like, I don't know.
Interesting.
Germans do things weird. I mean, we know this through history. So, but
maybe not all. Just
yeah. No, well, I'm German, so I could say that. It's like I can make fun of my people. So, but it's just like I don't know. But I wanted to say this because it reminded me of like, I was thinking about it and I was like, oh, okay, my friend's first car. I don't know what kind of car it was, but it was the kind of car that every time you got into it, it had like the seat belt that was like on this side of the dash. Like, so if you were driving and you got in the driver's seat and you got on this side and you closed the door and then this thing came up and like was like a motorized seat belt. So it like motorized your and then it would come over like your shoulder, but you still had to like buckle in your waist.
Yes.
The problem with that is like if you went to go borrow your friend's car, you didn't know like how they sat, and so you'd shut the door before you adjusted the seat. And next thing you know, like my buddy's car was like trying to murder me because like it was like coming over my neck. Like I hated that car. I don't know how to explain it. It's just like the the shoulder, like the part that like connected to the car at your left shoulder.
Yeah.
Was like motorized.
Yes, I do know what
and
you're
so
talking
you'd open up the door and it would go back to.
But I don't remember what kind of car that was. But yeah, I do remember what you were talking about. But you would have probably died trying to get in after me because I'm so short.
Really.
People die getting after me after.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I hated that car. I don't even know what type of car it was. I just knew that every
if
single
you know
time.
what type of car that is, let us know because we're interested.
It was
to
like
know.
I don't know. They should have named it like a whatever, like a Mazda piece of crap or something because like that type of car and that type of like quote unquote ingenuity, like I don't know. It just frustrated me. I think one time it like went in my mouth too, like it. I don't know. It was it's a piece of crap car. That's what it is. But anyways, hey, thank you so much for being here, for just kind of giving us like some insight and just what a typical week looks like, but then also like what we're focusing on and like the things that we're taking seriously and the things that we're putting thought behind. It's just we just ultimately want people to be pointed back to Jesus in anything and everything that we can do, and so we can see their relationship with Jesus grow stronger, grow closer, because then ultimately that's just like what we want. We want people to be better disciples of Jesus. So it's awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for having your kids. Look, they just didn't even realize it. They were on their first podcast.
I know.
And what a better one to join than the Pastor's Potluck Podcast.
Yep.
Hey, we'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening in with us today. We really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can also follow us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram. And you can also watch the video version of this on YouTube as well. All you have to do is search up the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. From all of us here, we want to say thank you, and we'll see you next week.